Let's see. I'm going to say hello. One, two, three, four. I hope people are out there and they can hear. There's one viewer. Somebody's on. I'm not too sure who else is on. Yes, ma'am. Y'all have a seat. There's 3 people on. If any of y'all have Facebook, Miss Cordero, you have Facebook, right?
Yes, I do.
See if it comes up on there. I just want to make sure. And then if you can see or hear it, I think we'll be in good shape. One, two, three, 4, 5. Anybody else have Facebook? There's only 4 people on right now. You can see up there at the very top, there's 5 people. It'll tell you at the very top of the where it says live. Bible.
You are.
You are? Can you hear us talking? Hello, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Oh, yes, you can.
I can hear
Perfect. We're good. So I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say thank you, Ms. Cordero. All right. I'm going to go ahead and start. Let me get my thing here. And the crazy thing is, if people type up here, you'll see them saying, yes, we can hear you, but Cox Kincaid. This Kincaid usually on there quite often. Thank you for being here today. My name is Gilroy Madrid, and I'm the Assistant Superintendent of Schools here in Fort Stockton. And today's meeting is about some funds that the district received from the federal government. And part of the requirements are is that we have a meeting. And so those of you in the room, we will probably be having a meeting every 6 months, just to kind of go over the things that we have in place, that we put in place with the spending of the money that we have. With that being said, I'm going to go to the main screen so everybody else can see it here. Okay. Again, thank you for being here today. Some of the things we're going to go over is, again, this is our stakeholder input meeting for the ESSER 3 funds that we received. There's about 20 slides, so hopefully I'll get through it pretty quick. Those of you in the room, there are, if you are online, if you just sign in virtually, just say you're here, like Ms. Kincaid, she did that. So thank you for doing that. Those of you who are in the room here, there is a blue card for you to sign. Just put your information on there, if you don't mind. Then we'll go to the presentation. Hello, Mr. Tarpley. And then we have a survey that is on the back of that card, which is also on the posting for this meeting. And then the last thing is just to say that we have a few more people coming in, and there's plenty of room. You guys grab you some drink sandwiches right there. Come on in. Again, we'll meet every 6 months for about 3 years. I know that sounds like a long time, but and the whole idea is to provide district with feedback, and you'll get updates, emails when we meet again, and what have you. So that'll be in place. If you have any other questions, you can call Amber at that number. She'll tell you all the information you need. She's usually on top of things whenever we have meetings like this. So, your role, the people in the room, and anybody out there in the world that's on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, so the basic idea is that we have to do your participation with people like you who serve the community in different roles. Then we are responsible to gather public input about the ESSER 3 funds grant. There is also a survey online. Dr. Zwarm, Mrs. Gomez, you can have a seat over here. Or over there, so, and then as always, the thing is we have to be transparent with the federal money. Any money that the schools get, we're very transparent. So we will put updates on our website and social media as we go along. So what is ESSER? It is the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief, which is to prevent, prepare, and respond to COVID-19. It really is to address learning recovery. Now, a lot of people say, oh, the learning loss. It's kind of hard to lose something if you really never got that learning. So we have to look at recovering all the learning that we can from our students. And so there are some other things, prepare schools for reopening, improve air quality, and incorporate best practices to address the needs of the students, which are social, academic, and emotional needs. There were actually 3 ESSER laws passed, okay? And ESSER 1 was the CARES Act, the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, in March 2020. There was a second one, Coronavirus Response and Relief Supplemental Appropriations Act. And then the last one, which was authorized in February 2021, the American Rescue Plan, which is ARC. Okay, so there was 3 of them that were passed down from the federal government onto the states and onto local entities such as schools. So here's what the federal government gave to states in the country. So if you look at CARES Act, ESSER 2, ESSER 3, I'm not going to say a word for that. CR, as I say, I couldn't tell you. When you look at the amount of money that was given for Stockton, the first one was ESSER 1, which was given about $500,000, which we used to purchase a lot of Chromebooks and things like that to help with the virtual learning that we had at the beginning of the school year. The majority of that money went to all of that. And then we have what's called ESSER 2. Now, I'll go a little bit about this ADA hold harmless recapture thing, and I'll talk a little bit more about that and where ESSER 2 plays with that role. But we're here today meeting over ESSER 3, which is almost $5 million that was given to the schools here at Fort Stockton ISD. There is money given to every school district in the state of Texas, but that is our amount based upon the information that we have from the state. So, ESSER 2, hold harmless. All right, here's what I want to talk about. When we talk about attendance, the reason why I want to, this is not part of the meeting, but it's important to understand that when we talk about ESSER 2, let's just say there's a term in schools that says ADA, average daily attendance, okay? And so what that means is this: even though we have 2,400 kids enrolled, so how to put up a number, even though we have 2,400 kids enrolled in school, we don't actually get the money for all those 2,400 kids in school. But more importantly, when people say, oh, you're just getting money from the state, that's our local money, that's our local tax base. So it's really letting us keep our own money here. So what the state says is, say, hey, you guys have like 200 kids absent a day, so you're only going to get funded for 2,200 kids, which is kind of crazy, but that's the rule of how school funding works in Texas. And so that's why attendance is very important. And again, people think, well, you just want to keep your money from the state. Again, it's local money that they're keeping. And so when I talk about recapture is money that schools have to get back to the state of Texas. And in 2011, 2012, we gave over $4 million back to the state of Texas. Okay. Then there was a little stint here. People are like, well, why was there a break? The lawmakers kind of changed the rules and things like that, and values go up and down. So during that time to 2019, we didn't pay recapture. But in 2019, 2020, we paid over $3 million to the state. And that's our local money. That's our taxpayers' money. And then this year, we were scheduled to pay $5.8 million. Now, ESSER 2 is going to help offset that cost. There's some hold harmless and some other things that they're still working in place to figure out what it is that our school district and other school districts have to pay back. But that's why attendance is very important, because the more we can get closer to our enrollment is, as far as kids being in school, the less money we have to send to the state of Texas. So that's why that slide is in there. It's really important. Next year, Mrs. Gomez works on a template every year to figure out what it is we have to pay the state of Texas. And she does a great job of that, and she works with the office across the street that collects the tax, and we gotta figure out what we're gonna pay when it comes to recapture the state. But again, this slide is all about keeping our money here. And because of that, we have to send a lot of money back. And attendance is the #1 way to keep our kids and keep our money here. So that's to be funny. The whole idea is to impact that we were impacted by the COVID-19 learning recovery. 20% of the money has to be allocated to learning recovery. And we have to ensure high quality teaching and learning across the school district. We provide targeted support and resources to our kids. So the whole idea is learning. And we talked about the ESSER 3 funding. There's some other things that are in the ESSER 3 funding. Maintain health and safety of our students, which is important, and staff. And reduce the risk of virus transmission and exposure to environmental health. And then, right here, retain high need, high impact individuals in our school district. And so those are the kind of things we're looking at to ensure that our students are getting better from the learning recovery they struggled for about a year and a half now. So again, address learning recovery among all students, including low-income students. People ask me, why I had a person look at this slide and say, why did you put that in there? If you look at the law, it will say specifically that right there. It will say that you have to, oh man, I skipped all that. I got a trigger happy there. Okay. So students with disabilities, employers, migrant students, students in homelessness, children in foster care. With all that being said, we have to make sure we have high quality assessments. That basically means where our kids are at. That's how we figure out, how we can help individual kids. We assess them to figure that out. So we have to have good assessments to show where the academic progress is of those students, so that the teachers can help get those students where they need to be. And then the other idea is to best practice academic activities. We need to implement those things as well. Overall, the goal is to improve on academics of all our students. That is the main goal. We also provide information to assist parents to support their students, and then tracking student attendance. And now that we've got the kids in school, that's great. We got kids in school, but we also have to keep them engaged in learning. And sometimes that's difficult because kids get bored. I get bored. And so sometimes we have to work on that and work on teaching strategies. And so that's one of the main goals we're looking at, is improving teaching instruction, because we all know that once you have the kids there, the number one impact is the teacher in the classroom to improving those kids' academics and improve their learning. And so we have teachers here today, and so they are probably, like I said, the most impact for our buck when it comes to kids who are learning, regardless of the pandemic or not. So we're looking at doing campus curriculum directors who are instructional leaders to help establish, sustain a culture of high expectations for academic support. Then they also help with monitor academic excellence, support our teachers to work as a team to improve. The whole idea is to improve as a team, as a group. And so the curriculum directors are the instructional leaders with the principals on the campus to help with that. And then just focus on addressing individual student learning. That's where the high quality assessments come into play. Because if I don't know where a kid's at, it's hard to help the kid. It's like going to the doctor and saying, you got to help me out, but they don't run any tests to help you out. So that's why that is important. We also talked about academic high need stipends. A stipend is basically extra money for high need areas. And so we all know that STAR and EOC are part of the game when it comes to school. That's just accountability. Those are rules we play by. Whether we like them or not, that's just the cards we have to play with. And so we are looking at, and it's in place now, that we have tested subject stipends for STAR areas to get the best of the best people teaching those classes. It's to help support teachers to grow and perform well. All right, because if the teachers perform well, then we know the students will perform well. And then again, to improve student academic, wow, that is crazy how that does that. Might be a new clicker. It's nuts. They did not do that to me when I tried this. And then prioritize teaching in high need areas in our school district. Realistic pathway to attract and retain top teachers who are highly effective. So with those stipends in place, the whole idea is to reward, retain, and recruit the best of the best for our students here in Fort Stock. So that's where those academic stipends come into play when we talk about that. And again, the rules that we play by is STAR EOC. Whether we like it or not, that's the rules. The other thing we're looking at is retention stipends. And we kind of already did this last school year, where each individual in the school district was paid a stipend. And with those S3 funds, we can look at, we're doing those stipends again to dedicated FSISD staff during the pandemic and retain the quality of current employees. We know we have employees and we have to retain the quality of them as well. And you reward the outstanding work throughout the pandemic. We fed students when it was tough, when the cafeteria ladies had to go out there and do grab and go lunches and breakfasts for people. And then even the students inside the cafeteria, there was things that we had to do a little bit differently, a lot of cleaning and sanitizing. And so it was a lot of extra things that we had to do that we weren't used to doing. But we ended up doing that. the technology distribution through the technology center, through the campuses, of students who were at home, who were doing virtual learning. That was a big deal. Something we were really never even accustomed to. So we had to learn and get better at it. Then we had to build a structured curriculum that impacted school and home learners in both different areas. And so that was tough. That was stuff that we really hadn't dealt with. In fact, the whole country really hadn't dealt with. And the last thing was that we had to practice daily health measures that we normally weren't doing, like sanitizing a bus 2 times a day, you know. And because we did all these things, practicing daily health measures, washing our hands, you know, having sanitizer, checking temperatures, we were able to minimize any spread of COVID-19 in our schools, in our buses, our schools, and our buildings. Our numbers were real low in the schools when it came to that. And I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that we were doing a lot of extra things. You know, for us, we usually get hit with the flu. Well, that never really happened this year. And I think a lot of it has to do with just the safe, hygienic practices we have. People always say doctors are the number one thing to keeping people safe and healthy. I think it's plumbers, because if you don't have running water, you don't have good hygiene, you know? So that's just how I feel about it. Plumbers are actually saving the world. We just don't know it. We get credit for it, you know? So anyway, we're also looking at HVAC at Apache School. And that's just the air conditioning, heating, ventilation, air conditioners at Apache School. And we're redoing that entire system. That system has given us some trouble. And so we've been struggling with that. The whole idea is to improve the air quality and ventilation and reduce any potential spread in that campus, and then lower the risk exposure to COVID-19 and other environmental issues that could be out there which we don't know about. So that one is something that we knew was going to be an issue because it is the only system that was designed that way. It was not designed in the way that all the other campuses were, where we had good airflow coming in and out. And so because of that, we're able to do that this year in our school district as well. So that is something else that we are doing with our ESSER 3 funds. And then there are 2 plans that we have to have for the ESSER 3 funds that we're getting from the state. One of them is a safe return to in-person instruction and the continuity of services. And we had a reopening plan that we had last year. And so all we're going to basically do is look at it and update it according to what we have to do this year. And I'll show you where that's at here in a little bit. The second plan is the plan of the use of funds, where we're putting that money. So we kind of already know where we're putting that money and have the best impact. We've spoken to principals, we've spoken to other administrators to figure out we have to address the instruction and curriculum in our schools. We know that. We have to do that because it impacts kids directly. We know that. If you can get great teaching in front of kids, they'll be successful. There's no doubt about it. And so that's where we know we're putting impact. We're also trying to keep the best of our best people teaching kids. And so that's why there's academic stipends for that. For many years, we had athletic stipends, band director stipends. I was one of those, you know. And so doing the academic stipends help put an emphasis on academics and improving academics. And again, to keep the best of the best people in the classroom teaching our kids. And so that's very important. And plan 2 is the use of funds. And that's basically a spreadsheet that gets put on the website that says this is where we're spending our money for the district. And we know it's going to be HVAC, we know it's going to be curriculum directors and instructional leaders with that. We know that it's going to be the academic side. So we know that. Because we know that's the biggest bang for our buck, is people doing the very best to help our kids. So that's where that's in place. I will show you here, if you look on our webpage and you go to departments and then I think health and wellness, there's a coronavirus information. That is last year's plan that we're just basically going to update from last year to this year with what we have to put in place. Okay? It's about 30 pages long, let me tell you. It's a lot of work. All right, but we already have a skeleton, so we're good. You know, we're good with that. And it's in Word, so there you go. You know. Other than that, you know, God, 20 minutes. That's pretty quick. I'm going to go ahead and switch over. I don't know if there's any questions. Does anybody have any questions in here before we go on? Because, like I said, the whole goal of the ESSER 3 funds is to help our kids with their learning, because we know there was a year and a half, spring break of what, 2020? Was that what it was? That I remember going out of town and flying in from Mexico thinking, man, I had to get to Texas before they shut us down in Mexico. We got back and we met up here and we ended up shutting down the school just like a lot of other people did. And so we knew at the beginning of that was the beginning of a lot of students struggle, a lot of staff struggle. And so hopefully with this money, we can improve academics with our curriculum directors on our campus with academic stipends, just to help teachers grow and be better. You know, the academic stipends are to help improve, you know, reward our best teachers, you know, and retain our best teachers. And so we're looking at a lot of things to help improve our school district, but we know the academics has to be first because these kids are going to be out in the world one of these days. And yes, we would like for everybody to be a star on the NFL football field or NBA basketball court, but we know the odds of that are very low. And so we know that impacting academics will help them tremendously, especially in the world, whether they go to a technical school, whether they work here in town, whether they work go to college, whatever it is. And so that is the goal of our district. So, are there any recommendations or things that you can think of that would help with that? We know academics is tough, you know. So that's what we're working on, while maintaining a safe environment in our schools. So we're still going to continue. We have cases and cases of hand sanitizer at the bus barn. They started passing it out when we were serving meals to all the kids. We're going to pass out some more. I may even give Mr. Tarpley a pallet of it at the college. If we got pallets of it, I think I'm going to drop one off over there, you know. So I'm glad he's here. I wasn't thinking about that. So thank you, Mr. Tarpley. So again, I do want to appreciate it. I'm not going to make anybody say who you are. Thank you for the students who are here today. Appreciate that. I know that you have much better things to do than come and listen to Mr. Ruger talk at an ESSER 3 meeting, so I do appreciate that. As far as everybody else, thank you for being here today. If there's any other questions, there's some sandwiches you can take on the way out. I'm trying to convince Ms. Cordero to take 2 or 3 sandwiches on the way out tonight. She won't do it.
Let me take a few minutes real quick. Thank you for joining us. I want to talk about the ESSER 1, 2, and 3, because Mr. Madrid put out some information that, while true, isn't completely true, like most states. But that ESSER 1 money was laundered by the state. We really only reaped 5%, 10% of that money. So we had to go through the motions to claim our own money back. The ESSER 2 money that was up there was laundered by the state. And that all it's doing is, we're not getting it. It's some of the recapture that we were talking about is being held, from us having to pay it. So again, it's not money that we're getting. This money, the ESSER 3, really is money that is coming to us. And what we have in place, you may have an idea, and you're like, oh, the idea that I have is $5,000 to do. You say, is that even something that they would consider? Some of the projects that we're looking at, like that HVAC, and saying the way we're improving the air circulation for our kids, the different instructional leaders that we're bringing in, that's kind of our way of cleaning the money. Because we have very specific things that we have to use it on. But what that does is free up some of the general fund to come back for some of the smaller things, like that $5,000 idea. So don't think that, well, if I put something down as a suggestion or something that I think would be beneficial to the district, that just because they didn't do it with ESSER 3 money, it's just going to be completely ignored. It may come back and something that is revisited, once we get past this ESSER 3 as a good idea, and then we can look at implementing it. Because we have been supplemented this time. The state didn't steal the money from us. So we are looking at doing some great things already. I can tell you that we'll probably be resurfacing the playgrounds at the elementaries very soon. We're talking about awnings for those same playgrounds very soon, so that when the kids are out there, they don't have to burn their legs and all that on the slides, make them more comfortable. And that, in large part, has become a very reasonable thing to ask for, because we were just able to salvage $1.3 million from that HVAC system that was recently approved as ESSER 3. Remember the pre-approval was received?
Yeah.
So when we came up with those initial plans, so take the time, if you come up with an idea, give that input. You know, I'm assuming that's what the form is for, sir. And then he has a survey available online as well, where you can put your ideas on it. And I'll remind everybody one more time, just you give input. You know, we're here to receive input. It doesn't mean that, oh, I didn't get my way. You know, you had your opportunity. We promise that if you come up with an idea that's brilliant and just makes absolute sense, we'll probably implement it. But if we joked yesterday, decided what we want is a margarita machine. That's not going to work. Not for the school district, you know. So just understand what input is, right? Input is the opportunity to suggest some things, and if you can suggest something or come up with something that is really going to benefit the district, we'll probably use it. Thank you. All right, you, sir.
Yes. Okay. So, a lot of people are nervous, so they don't really want to say a whole lot sometimes. So they're more accustomed to write things down, and I get it. That's why that part is there for you as well. Yes, sir.
So look at that SR3, about 5 mil. How much has that been allocated? I know some of that stipend stuff, curriculum directors, some of that's been decided. How much of that would you say has been allocated?
I know the HVAC,
Approximately.
the HVAC is probably going to be over $1 million.
Okay.
1.3 million, there's no doubt about it.
Okay.
As far as it comes to salaries and things like that, there's some things we have to look at, depending on experience and what have you. The stipend is kind of already set with the budget wise. I know we're still looking at those numbers, about 3 million. Maria's saying about 3 million. Now, 20% of that.
We have 3 years to expend the money,
Yes.
so we allocated over 3 years.
Okay.
Yes.
So,
1
yeah, so if you look at, 20% does have to be allocated to instruction. Like, there's no way. So I think with the curriculum directors on the campuses, that will help out tremendously. So you're looking at about $1 million just for that alone for 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Okay. So there's still some SR3 money to play with, if you will, for ideas.
Use it wisely?
Yes.
That's what you're saying?
Yes, exactly. Play with doesn't sound good. No.
You're choosing good words.
Words talking.
I'm gonna say use it wisely. In the best interest of the students. I'll say
Yeah, okay, yeah.
so. But yeah, any other recommendations you feel? If you don't want to say, ask yourself. Like I said, there's some people who are a little embarrassed to say, especially knowing that you're being, before, you're worldwide now. Anybody can go in and watch what we're talking about right now if you wanted to, So I did change the camera a little bit, so.
I'm not shy, I have a suggestion.
Okay.
Like for the bus kids waiting at the schools, it would be nice to have, like, for example, when I was at intermediate or something where the kids have somewhere to be under, like maybe a big shade or something.
Yes, and Dr. Moore just mentioned that awnings on some of our areas where the buses do have to, pick up kids, and the kids are waiting a little bit, especially in the weather and stuff. We don't get a whole lot of rain, but when we do, people don't know how to drive, walk, talk, anything. So I get it, that is some of the things that we can get at, and write that down. You don't mind. Good, perfect. So, any other? I know Ms. Cordel's got a ton of. She wants to already managed.
I'm sort of out of the loop. I haven't really been paying attention to what's been going on. Teachers will get a raise too, right?
Yes, teachers get, yes, and this year.
Teachers and aides.
Teachers, yeah, the at-will employees or the people clocking in, clocking out probably got the highest percentage raise district-wide, and then the teachers as well. The whole goal, and I know that Dr. Moore is still, Maria, we've had meetings to discuss how we can improve teacher retention here in the district, and he's got some great ideas that we can put in place to improve that, get the best of the best here in both sides, to help our kids. So it's a move in the right direction. So yes, the goal is to get, pay people, and then with those academic stipends, even more. If someone is an attested subject and they're a superstar, they need to be rewarded for that. Otherwise, they may go somewhere else, and we want to keep it here for our kids.
For the dual credit students this past spring, have a 3-person team that took from the teachers those students that weren't attending, having a solid grade, and that 3-person team started making the contact with the student and the parent and making sure, their understanding of, what needed to go on. And Might not have changed anything for those students that were so far behind, but at least we felt like the parents knew where the students stood and where those resources were that they could go to get extra help if they needed.
You're right, because sometimes in dual credit, kids think that, oh, my parents, that's college, my mom and dad, they don't need to know. But as a former high school principal and the principal now, we kind of feel that it's important that parents do know, because they're still claiming on their taxes, my golly, So, and they're still their kids. Whether sometimes they make not the best decisions like many kids do, but I know that's something else we've also talked about is monitoring that a little bit closer, or we can say, hey, let's see where you're at periodically, see where they're growing and if they do need help. Because I know that there's a lot of resources that you guys have at the college that can help with that. So, and we do have a great partnership with Millen College, so that's always been a great, our kids get a lot of credit hours at a very low cost rate in a lot of places.
I have another one.
Yes, ma'am.
So are all kids gonna need to go, are they gonna be required to go back to school? Because.
Right now, the way the funding formulas, and I could be wrong, but right now, I think the way TEA is set, Texas Education Agency says, the way the funding formulas are, that you have to be in school to be funded or you can be funded. And so, and Governor Greg Abbott said the same thing. It's like, you gotta be in school. That's just the way it is. So we know that. So we still have things in place that we're gonna continue to do to help keep kids safe. We still have the COVID-19 rapid testing available here at the Bud School. We still work with a hospital, and some of you may or may not remember that whenever we first started doing vaccines, we were able to get school staff in with the first group. And a lot of other places weren't doing that. We were able to do that, working with a hospital, working with Judge Joe Schuster, working with people at the state, Mr. Davis, and they're happy to help us with that. So yes, kids will be in school, because the governor says they gotta be in school. So, and we all know, if you speak to every teacher, they would tell you, they want their babies in school. They know that. They miss them, they want them, they want to share with them, and help them grow. Because even though they were at home, they know, there's moms in the room, and when you have 8 different teachers, 8 specialized teachers or 7 specialized teachers in the day to help that student learn, it's hard for a mom or dad to do that, or a brother or sister. That's hard sometimes. And so there was a lot of pressure on families the past year and a half, but I know that here in our school district, we're putting a lot of things in place to help alleviate that and help our kids get better, and help them learn more than where they were, because there is some catching up we have to do. There's no doubt about it. Now, some kids did really well, I don't know if they Googled everything to get the answers or what, but they did well. But majority of our kids did struggle, and a lot of that, it's just hard when it's not an instructional situation. It's like our own jobs. You gotta be here a certain time. You gotta do this a certain time. It just helps. And so that structure, being in school does help out tremendously for academics. Good questions. Yes, sir.
Have the funds been allotted?
This is one of the, not yet. I mean, we know how much is in there, but this is one of the requirements that we have in place. There's some other board actions that have to come around this, and then we do have to apply online for it, as Dr. Zamora mentioned. But this is one of the steps closer, that gets us closer to that mark. So.
Have you all considered a phone system for the schools? Because I had to add an area code. So nobody answers my phone calls. If I call block, they don't answer them.
We've talked about improving the phone system in a couple of our places, because we know AT&T, wrong with AT&T, but we do have stuff like my phone sometimes doesn't work.
Oh.
We have looked at improving our phone lines and maybe even doing voice IP over telephony with the technology people. That's just something we've talked about, looked at it. We know there's some like, for example, very central office, there's times I call and I'm hearing Lucy, I'm hearing music, and it's somebody else on the line, and you don't know who it is. Hopefully you don't hear things you want to hear, but I don't know. But that is something, if you don't want to do that now, I can give you the card, because he's got a color book there. That works out great.
I'm gonna hop in on that question a bit. Ma'am, at the last board meeting that we had, the board approved a comprehensive assessment of every area of the district, facility-wise, including technology. And I know that that's one of the things that I noticed when I got here, is that our phone system is dated, to say the least. When the individuals that we contract, actually have this, they're going to give us a foundation So really looking at what we need to fix in the district. Instead of just throwing at random projects, we're gonna have it organized and I'm sure that area is gonna be when the dust settles near the top of the things that we can fix quickly.
Good job. Communication is pretty important. Even when I have to call down, get over it.
Was there a pre-award application? Or is this just everything from here on?
Well, we know how much money they're allowing us to receive. It's like $4.9 million. And so with the meetings, with all the things they're doing in place, there's like several guidelines of what we have to do to be able to receive that money. So once we do that, we should be fine. And if you tie it to academic learning, you're almost, you're gonna be fine.
There was an intent to apply that was put out, and it was very simple, just saying, this is a process. The actual plan has got to be submitted by the 27th, the 27th is when the actual application, but the money is there so long as we follow the proper steps.
So it's good for our community, that, especially if you have to pay that much recapture. There's some schools and places that don't pay recapture. So that's one good thing. Any other questions? Somebody give me a tough one. And I'll let Dr. Moore answer. Other than that, I guess we're good. I don't see any other questions up there. Great to hear somebody this morning here. Thank you. That's Cartwright's on the line. Thanks for knowledge. Thumbs up. So that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and end this meeting. We went in about 37 minutes. There's some sandwiches you can take on your way out. Please leave the card there. If there's something else that you have you think of something, give us a call. 264,000 extension 12. We let them never know. There's also a survey online. Either our website, social media, you can go on there and say, give us more advice, as far as what you think, and we'll be good. So I'm gonna go ahead and end the meeting. I'll tell everybody bye. The whole world to see. All right.